All right, we're back, everybody. Another segment here on Open Line as we talk about relationships that we all develop with celebrities and people, writers, athletes, musicians, actors, and so forth, especially through social media, by following them and feeling like we have built a personal relationship with them. Claire Sisco King is joining us, associate professor at Vanderbilt, and we have some phone calls. As promised, I said I would get right to them, so let's start with Stacy on line 2. Hi, Stacy, welcome.
Hi, Rory. You might tell your guest about your own kind of association, or your parents, I guess, naming you. I don't know if you were named after Rhori Kennedy or they just like the name, but...
Yeah, there's a lot of Rhori. I will tell you, Stacy, I know Rhori Kennedy. She's a filmmaker and one of the many children, Robert F. Kennedy, and was it Ethel, I believe, right?
Right.
Sadly, she was the one, it was her wedding where JFK Jr. and the other two, his fiancée, or was it his wife at the time? And yeah, wife and sister died in plane crash. Tragic. That's right. The R-O-R-Y spelling, which is the traditional, and it's a boy-girl. And mine is spelled, obviously, R-H-O-R-I, which I'm told is the Scottish spelling of the Irish name found in my family way back when. But yeah, Rhori, here we are.
And I'm actually a distant relative of Rory's husband, Mark Bailey, so there you go.
Oh, excellent. So
anyway,
what's on your mind? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I've been covering, I've been a celebrity journalist, print and broadcast, and also an author for over 50 years, so I've got quite a take on all of this, and I'm looking forward to reading the professor's book. And I'm hoping, since I can't, there's no time for me to go over everything I want to say. I hope maybe she's gotten in a little bit about the concept of false intimacy. Yeah. But I wonder if she would talk about, at some point, transactional relationships and why so many celebrities prefer that to real relationships. And I've kind of, one of the things that I've noticed locally where things have taken a different turn with the whole concept of celebrity journalism is the advent of media training, which when I first came here didn't even exist. Yeah. And also want to just briefly talk about what I think is the debasing element of celebrity, and that's everything from some of them speaking in the third person, kind of the royal we, to book signings. It used to be, you know, when the first country music books came along, they'd have the author at the bookstore, and you could go up and shake hands and take a picture. Right. And it's gotten to the point where I understand, like with, you know, former presidents or something like that, they don't necessarily have the time to personalize the books. But to me, if you're willing to pay, if you're going to pay, you know, whatever the cost of a hardback book is right now, I don't think it's too much to ask the person to personalize it. And then these giveaways that the stations do, you know, where you have to be the 28th caller. Yep. Well, I know my time's worth more than that. So. Right. Yeah, it's true.
Wow, we have a lot to go on here. Let me put you on hold and let's listen to what Claire has to say.
Okay.
Well, what I'm really struck by the comment about media training, because that has become such a phenomenon in just about every profession. I mean, obviously journalists have media training built into their career, but you know, academics are expected to do media training now. Physicians do media training. Of course, celebrities do media training because we do spend so much of our lives on screens now. And there is this expectation that I think, you know, the sort of beginning with the 24/7 news cycle to social media, this idea that we should constantly be consuming and generating media. And social media has really catalyzed this sense that all of us need to have a persona or a brand, that even if we're not a famous person, we should present ourselves as if we have an audience, as if we have a fan base. And so, you know, the notion that we should all be good at presenting ourselves and good on screens has become much more ubiquitous now than it ever has been before.
You know, we have a talent coach that we employ from time to time here who comes in and works with reporters and anchors and goes over, you know, just tips to make sure that we are doing our very best to be relaxed and genuine and really keeping the audience, you know, motivated, and we're sharing as much news as we can. That person I know is a friend of mine, lives locally, and he also coaches athletes, current athletes now, who not only seek out some training because they want to be better just at the news conference, the post-game news conference, or interviews on the field. A lot of these young people, men and women who've been in athletics, are not used to that, right? How to answer questions and look at the camera and perform and understand how important it is. But also when maybe 20, 25 years ago, when newspapers started to come into move over to the internet, a lot of print reporters who were never used to being on camera, suddenly there was a camera in a lot of newsrooms. Tennessean did it, and big major newspapers, and they had to also undergo some training of that. So it's widespread. I mean, it's across the board, right?
Absolutely. And, and we have these social media that have now amplified and expanded their platforms. Instagram, for instance, used to be just still photos or occasional videos, and now you have the Instagram Live feature, which is the Instagram Stories, and you've got Reels. And so there is this sort of larger investment from these media corporations for people to be on camera all the time, right? Filming, videoing aspects of our lives every day. And so it's a different kind of media training that we're experiencing too, not just the sort of coaching, how to do an interview,
not just performance. It's strategic.
Right. Absolutely. How to be a sort of documentarian of your life, but of course, in ways that are appealing to audiences. And that gets at, I think, the caller's question about the kind of transactional.
Yes, I was just going to ask about that. Right.
Yeah, that, transactional relationships are ones when, you engage with another person because you think you're going to get something from it, or you're going to give them something, right? It's a sort of exchange rather than a kind of genuine connection. And I think that, I think the star system has always encouraged a certain level of transactional relationship, that when stars reach out to fans or to audiences, they're doing it to encourage their fandom. They're doing it to encourage them to watch their film. And so, I think that there's always a level of transactionality in these kind of celebrity relationships, probably in all relationships to a degree. But given the way that social media is used to monetize things and to build brands and to sell products and, to advertise, that the nature of, or the level of that transactionality has really increased. It's really been
amplified. And, I hate to use the word manipulation because I think it's pretty obvious now nowadays when there is maybe a celebrity using a product, talking about a particular product, whether it's a woman putting on makeup and just saying, wow, I found this is just great. I love this, and obviously there is a financial stake involved with the company and that celebrity. Sometimes it's very subtle and you may not realize it, but many times it's very upfront and it's obvious that this person is representing a certain product, but there can be manipulation involved.
Oh, sure. And there have certainly been moments where celebrities or micro celebrities, which is another term to describe people who have followings maybe on one social media platform or across a few different platforms, but aren't sort of, mega stars. But plenty of situations where those folks or influencers have been promoting products and then had slip ups in their videos, or released the wrong video, released a video at the wrong time that made it clear that they were doing the promotion in a very transactional, not at all authentic way. And that sort of, pulls the curtain back a little bit. But I think that level of kind of promotion and of sort of advertising products has become so ubiquitous that most of the time we just sort of, absorb it or scroll past it, but don't think about it too much because it is everywhere.
Right. And moving on now to, there's kind of a penchant in pop culture to where some of these one-sided relationships can become dangerous, where we hear about situations of stalking and threats. But generally speaking, from what I have read, it doesn't usually get to that point. It's usually very healthy. somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that level of sort of pathology or predatory relationship, that's always existed when it comes to fame. And of course, those kinds of that kind of violence isn't limited just to famous relationships either. But I think you're right that by and large, most parasocial relationships are healthy, that they fulfill certain wishes, certain needs that people have in their everyday lives, and can also generate other kinds of relationships. Right. So, you mentioned Derrick Henry. I'm also a big Derrick Henry fan. I wear my Derrick Henry jersey every time I go to a Titans game, and I see lots of other people wearing not only Titans jerseys, but Derrick Henry jerseys in particular, and then we connect with each other. And so the relationships can be not only between you and the famous person you admire, but between other people who share that interest as well. And so those relationships can become truly interpersonal relationships, where people meet each other face to face and develop that kind of authentic connection.
Yeah, and it starts, from what I've read, at a very early age, and it can be healthy. And like you said, it can be instructional and really help. Like kids, I never even thought about this, like Big Bird and Elmo on Sesame Street. I've always seemed like they're your friends, and kids know them, and animated characters and superheroes and people we honestly root for, so we have these positive feelings. We want them to do well, and I think that's a good thing.
And I think that we develop relationships with particular famous people or characters, not just because of who we imagine them to be specifically, but what we associate them with more largely, the kinds of values or belief structures that we attach to those people. And Sesame Street's a great example. I mean, that was part of a very decided effort to use television to amplify children's education and to have these characters who stood for values that educators thought were important for kids to develop, including empathy. And so it absolutely can be a way of fostering belief in things that are bigger than just the particular actor or just the particular character.
And it goes on. I've read some things here about, the sense of belonging that it helps with, that also you talk about, I think in your class, you talk about fame and gender and even misogyny. And some of these bonds can help, studies have shown, reduce prejudice against groups of people, and really kind of expose people to a variety of diverse lifestyles and really kind of open their minds.
Absolutely. I mean, if you take figures like Britney Spears and Judy Garland, who may seem to have nothing to do with each other, except, both talented performers with intense fan bases, but also people who struggled very openly with mental health. And the sense of their struggle, I think, for a lot of their fans became a point of identification, became a way for them to feel a sense of belonging, of connection to that person, and to feel acceptance too. And that's particularly important for communities that have felt historically marginalized or oppressed, that kind of parasocial relationship can in some cases really be life-saving.
Yeah, it's fascinating. All right, when we come back, we do have a couple of calls on hold again. We're going to get to the calls, I promise, right when we come back from the break. And then we're going to dive into this Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial and how this is all kind of playing out online, with the fans even kind of trying to help with each side's defense, I guess, or their cases. More after the break.